From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Look at the misery of one country, our country and the trees that were destroyed. Nothing remains. Our materials were lost in the sea. Others are under the ground. What are we going to do?
The death toll in Haiti tops 1,000 as the country faces a cholera outbreak and a possible famine after Hurricane Matthew causes what's been described as apocalyptic destruction. The UN says nearly 1 million people are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. We'll speak with the Najraoul of Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees, then to Yemen.
We came out to the United Nations today to call for our human rights and to denounce this unprecedented massacre that took place yesterday at the Morning Hall. Where are the human rights? Where is the UN? Where is the world?
At least 140 people have died in Yemen after the U.S.-backed Saudi coalition bombed a funeral hall in the capital, Sana'a. 500 others were wounded in the attack. We'll look at the U.S. role in the war with Sarah Leah Whitson of Human Rights Watch. Then, to all the president's misogynists, why it took so long to derail the Trump train.
I was getting beaten up for 72 hours on all the networks for inappropriate words 12 years ago. Locker room talk, whatever you want to call it. But I said to myself, wait a minute. And I just saw very inappropriate words. But Bill Clinton sexually assaulted innocent women, and Hillary Clinton attacked those women viciously.
We'll speak with Jody Jacobson, editor-in-chief of Rewire, about the shocking 2005 Trump tape where he brags about sexually assaulting women. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's campaign is facing increasing turmoil as House Speaker Paul Ryan told fellow Republican lawmakers Monday he would no longer campaign for Trump following the release of a 2005 videotape showing Trump boasting about sexually assaulting women.
I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
That was Donald Trump speaking with TV host Billy Bush in the 2005 video recorded by NBC's Access Hollywood as the two prepared to meet with a soap star from Days of Our Lives. The video has caused widespread outrage and further fractured the Republican Party. On Monday, House Speaker Ryan did not fully unendorse Trump, but he did tell Republicans he would no longer campaign for him. Ryan's spokeswoman also said, quote, "The Speaker is going to spend the next month focused entirely on protecting our congressional majorities," unquote. In response, some Republican lawmakers lashed out at Ryan, saying he should not concede the presidency to Hillary Clinton. One Republican lawmaker, Arizona Congressman Trent Franks, slammed Ryan, saying he cannot support Clinton over her pro-choice stance on abortion, claiming a Clinton presidency would result in the destruction of fetuses, quote, limb from limb, unquote. The turmoil within the Republican Party comes as another round of newly leaked emails show how Hillary Clinton's campaign struggled to deal with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders' popularity during the primary season. The emails released by WikiLeaks appear to come from the account of Clinton campaign chair John Podesta. In one email, an advisor wrote to Podesta, quote, "Message needs to be more positive, upbeat, hopeful. Bernie is saying we can change the world. Her message is no, we can't because," unquote. The aide also recommended Clinton's campaign feature more young people in her campaign ads. Another email also shows Clinton aide Doug Band calling Clinton's daughter Chelsea a spoiled brat. This is the second batch of Clinton campaign emails released by WikiLeaks in the last 4 days. In more news from the campaign trail, Trump's Taj Mahal Casino Hotel in Atlantic City officially shut down Monday, leaving 3,000 workers hours without jobs. Taj Mahal workers have been on strike since July 1st, demanding reinstatement of health, pension, and other benefits eliminated during 2014 bankruptcy proceedings. Trump opened the Taj Mahal 26 years ago, but it now belongs to Trump's friend and fellow billionaire Carl Icahn. Haiti's interim president, Jocelyn Prévert, is warning the country faces a possible famine from what he described as the apocalyptic destruction of Hurricane Matthew. The death toll from the hurricane has topped 1,000 as the country battles a growing cholera outbreak, and authorities dig mass graves for those killed by the Category 4 storm. The storm hit a week ago, but many areas have still received no aid. Food and medicine have run out. We'll have more on Haiti after headlines. Meanwhile, the death toll in the United States from Hurricane Matthew has risen to at least 30 people as floodwaters continue to rise. North Carolina is struggling with historic flooding, while in Georgia, more than 100,000 people are still without electricity. In news on Yemen, documents obtained by Reuters show the U.S. government's concerned it could be implicated in potential war crimes in Yemen because of its support for a Saudi-led coalition air campaign. The Obama administration has continued to authorize weapons sales to Saudi Arabia, despite warnings last year from government lawyers that it might be considered a co-belligerent under international law. This comes as residents of Sana'a are mourning airstrikes on a funeral hall in Sana'a on Saturday that killed at least 140 mourners and wounded more than 500 others, making it the single deadliest attack during the ongoing U.S.-backed Saudi-led war in Yemen. This is one of the mourners.
This act is completely void of humanitarian norms and is unprecedented and considered one of the most serious crimes to date.
Meanwhile, the U.S. military has said one of its missile destroyers was targeted Sunday in a failed missile attack from Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen. We'll have more on Yemen after headlines. In Afghanistan, a suicide car bomb has killed at least 14 people in Lashkar Gah, the capital of Helmand province. Local officials say at least 10 of the victims were Afghan police officers. This comes as the Taliban has announced a new offensive to retake control of the provincial capital. In August, 100 U.S. soldiers were deployed to Lashkar Gah to fight the Taliban in what was believed to be the first deployment of U.S. troops to the city since 2014. Ethiopia's prime minister has declared a 6-month state of emergency amidst massive protests by the Oromo people, which has been met by a bloody government crackdown. The protests began last year over resistance to the government's plan to lease a forest to private developers and have since grown into a nationwide campaign against human rights abuses. As many as 500 people have been killed in the government's crackdown, and tens of thousands have been detained. On Sunday, Ethiopia's prime minister declared a state of emergency. On Monday, protests and actions were held across the country to mark Indigenous Peoples Day and to oppose further construction of fossil fuel infrastructure. In North Dakota, hundreds of Native Americans and their allies gathered to resist the construction of the $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline, which has faced months of resistance from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and members of hundreds of other tribes from across the U.S., Canada, and Latin America. At least 27 people were arrested blockading construction at 2 separate work sites, including Hollywood actress Shailene Woodley.
Right now, you're going to be placed under arrest for criminal trespass, right? Because I have 40,000 people watching. So everybody knows we were going to our vehicle, which they had all surrounded and waiting for me with giant guns and the giant truck behind them, just so they could arrest me, so they knew this would happen. I hope you're watching, mainstream media.
This comes as the battle over the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline continues to play out both on the ground and between various government agencies. The Morton County Sheriff's Department has called in 400 sheriffs from outside North Dakota to police the ongoing resistance following Sunday's ruling by a D.C. appeals court that permits the Dakota Access Pipeline Company to resume construction on a 40-mile stretch of private land spanning the Missouri River. However, However, on Monday, 3 federal agencies, the Justice Department, the Army, and the Interior Department, issued a second joint statement stating, quote, "The Army will not authorize constructing the Dakota Access Pipeline on Corps land bordering or under Lake Wahe. We repeat our request that the pipeline company voluntarily pause all construction activity within 20 miles east or west of Lake Wahe," unquote. Thousands of Native Americans have vowed to continue to fight the pipeline.
Just lifted the 20-mile ban, the injunction, so they lifted it, so now it's full outright war against the Native people since the Dakota Access Pipeline is going to go full force ahead. They have called in reinforcements from other sheriff's departments across the U.S., and the camp, the Ashiti-Sukhoi camp, the Red Warrior camp, and all the other encampments are calling for reinforcements to come not only get on the front lines, but also help prepare for winter and winterize the camps.
Just 1 second. Just one. Meanwhile, in Peekskill, New York, 7 activists were arrested Monday blockading the construction of Spectra Energy's AIM pipeline, which is slated to run only hundreds of feet from the aging Indian Point nuclear power plant and then under the Hudson River. 4 of the activists blockaded construction of the pipeline for more than 15 hours by crawling inside the pipeline and locking themselves to each other. This is one of the protesters.
We crawled into the pipeline at about 7 o'clock this morning. The workers realized that we were here about half an hour later, and police officers were called. They attempted negotiating with us from afar. They made a few threats about sending in canines and things like that. Otherwise, most of the day was spent with us sitting here playing 20 questions.
In Arizona, hundreds of people rallied at a U.S.-Mexico border checkpoint Sunday to demand the permanent closure of all border checkpoints throughout the United States. Activists linked arms at the checkpoint and refused to leave. Authorities threatened to use tear gas to disperse the protesters. Protesters also staged a die-in at the steps of the Customs and Border Patrol office. The action was organized by the group SOA Watch, that's School of the Americas Watch. In Vermont, 5 high school students have died after a motorist driving the wrong way down Interstate 89 slammed into the teenagers' car who were coming home from a concert Saturday night. The car burst into flames. The driver then stole a police car that had stopped to try to help the children. He then drove away, turned around, raced back, going against traffic, smashing into more cars that had stopped to help the students in the car crash. The driver, Stephen Burgoyne, is a U.S. military veteran who served in Iraq. Authorities say he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and that he'd gone to the emergency room the morning before the crash seeking help, but that he was not screened by a mental health clinician. His ex-girlfriend took out a restraining order against him after a domestic violence incident in May. She says he's threatened to kill her by driving them into a pond. She won full custody of their toddler. Authorities say Burgoyne is still unconscious and in critical condition after the crash. The high school students killed in the crash were 16-year-old Mary Harris, 16-year-old Cyrus Chow, 16-year-old Liam Hale, 15-year-old Janie Kazi, and 16-year-old Eli Brookins. 4 of the 5 students attended Harwood Union High School in Duxbury, Vermont. The co-principal of the school has called it an unprecedented tragedy. About 1,000 people attended a candlelight vigil for the students, who are all juniors in high school. In technology news, Samsung has ended the production of its Galaxy 7 smartphone because the device is prone to catching fire. This comes after Samsung also recalled 2.5 million phones after complaints the batteries were exploding. And writer and journalist Ignacio Carrion died on Saturday from lung cancer. Born in Spain in 1938, Carrion worked as journalist for more than 45 years in London, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C., as well as Spain. He was also the author of more than a half-dozen books. Ignacio Carrion was the father of former Democracy Now! Producer Maria Carrion. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Haiti, the death toll from Hurricane Matthew has topped 1,000. Haiti's interim president, Jocelyn Prévert, is warning the country faces a possible famine from what he described as the apocalyptic destruction of Hurricane Matthew. Haiti is also battling a growing cholera outbreak. The storm hit a week ago, but many areas have still received no aid. Food and medicine have run out. Authorities are now digging mass graves for those killed by the Category 4 storm. United Nations officials say nearly 1 million people are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance, with up to 80% of Haiti's food crops destroyed in some areas. Aid agencies estimate at least 60,000 people are staying in temporary shelters. One unidentified person told reporters the hurricane took everything, including her home.
I don't have a home. All my things went with the water. I'm going to give birth this month. I have nothing. I have been here in the shelter since Monday.
On Monday, the UN made an appeal for emergency life-saving funds to provide critical food, water, and shelter to the hundreds of thousands of people suffering in southwestern Haiti. This is Rudolf Muller of the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs speaking at a news conference.
The government of Haiti and the humanitarian countries team Flash Appeal seeks to provide life-saving assistance and protection to 750,000 people out of 1.4 million people in need over the next 3 months. To do so, we urgently need to mobilize $119 million.
The United Nations says Hurricane Matthew has triggered the largest humanitarian crisis in Haiti since the 2010 earthquake that killed as many as 300,000 people. Survivors reported drinking well water contaminated by dead livestock. At least 13 people have died of cholera after floodwaters mixed with sewage. On Sunday, Haiti's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva, Pierre-André Dunbar, told reporters Haiti may also face famine.
This is not a population which is now on its knees, but on the ground, in front of the atrocity of Hurricane Matthew. The city of Jérémie, which is an important one, this city has been systematically devastated and 80% of the houses were destroyed, without mentioning houses which were damaged or severely damaged. Crops were also destroyed, which means the country will face a severe famine as the southwestern peninsula is considered as the breadbasket of Haiti, so the needs are urgent.
Meanwhile, Sunday's planned presidential election in Haiti was postponed indefinitely in the wake of Hurricane Matthew. For more, we're joined by Ninaj Raoul, Executive Director of Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees, also a board member of IFCO, Pastors for Peace. Ninaj, welcome to Democracy Now! Can you talk about the severity of what happened, the 1,000 people lost?
Yeah, first of all, the area of Haiti that was hardest hit is the southwest and some parts of the northwest. And the fact that the bridge was destroyed, a bridge that's in Chiguave, it cuts off access to the southern part of Haiti, that southern peninsula, which was hardest hit. And this part of Haiti is mostly farmers that live off of their crop and working with livestock animals. And most people lost a good amount of the crop and the livestock. So this is all they had. This is all they had, and they're in very remote areas. You know, there are some areas where people were not even aware that the hurricane was coming because they don't have access to radio.
We're talking about 1,000 people dead, possibly much more.
Yeah, it's hard to know how many people are dead because people weren't even able to access to even look for people. So these are just really rough estimates. And as we see, the toll keeps going higher and higher.
Your husband is from that area and is just headed there this morning?
He just left for Haiti this morning. He's on his way there down now. And he's from a town called Baconois, which is in the Nip area of Haiti. That's the top part of the southwestern peninsula. And, you know, folks that are in a town called Cadno that were visited directly after from folks that we know, you know, were not even aware that the hurricane was coming. So they weren't even prepared. to do anything about it, to defend themselves.
So you have the people who have died. You've had the water supply, the crops that are destroyed. What about the water? And then the possibility that the water is contaminated and a cholera outbreak.
Well, first, some of these are coastal villages, so the salt water spills over and contaminates the soil, which makes it hard to farm again. And then you have overflowing latrines that are going to further contaminate the waters that go into drinking water and just regular water that everyone uses every day. So we already had a problem with cholera, and whenever we have these floods caused from disaster, it exacerbates the problem, and more people. We're starting to see deaths from cholera already, even in the early days following the earthquake.
Hurricane Matthew hit the coastal town of Lake Kai especially hard. Conditions at a local hospital remain bleak after flooding and power outages made treating patients nearly impossible. This is one of the patients at Lake Kai's hospital.
I have been waiting here for 12 days. I was ready for an X-ray that they were supposed to do on Tuesday, but then the hurricane came.
Subsistence fishermen are reportedly among the most vulnerable in Haiti after Hurricane Matthew tore through Haiti, destroying boats and equipment used for daily catches. This is fisherman Jethro Laurent.
Look at the misery of one country, our country and the trees that were destroyed. Nothing remains. Our materials were lost in the sea. Others are under the ground. What are we going to do?
So you spoke about cholera. Talk about the history of cholera in Haiti.
Well, cholera, there has been a history of cholera in Haiti over the years, but in recent years, the epidemic was caused from the UN troops that had spilled some sewage, some latrines into the rivers.
And explain this. This is after the earthquake of 2010.
This is after the earthquake, when you had all these peacemakers.
These were Nepali peacekeepers who had come in for the UN.
Right. So just from carelessness and neglect, some of their latrines had leaked into the rivers, and that's where this latest cholera epidemic started. It's close to 10,000 people have died as a result, and every time there's a disaster, which Haiti has many, then the situation gets worse and the cholera outbreaks begin again. And we've seen that in the past week already.
And so how do you prevent this outbreak once again?
It's hard to say, Amy, because there have been massive vaccination programs coming in, but it's been proven that these vaccination programs, sometimes it's business related, and the strain that they're treating is not the same strain that exists in Haiti. I know that the Cuban doctors the Cuban brigade that are there from Haiti have been excellent in preventing a lot of death and recovering folks faster.
You know, I remember going down to Haiti after the earthquake, and in the hospitals where the Cuban doctors were, this is where the care was best. People were afraid to tell Americans that it was Cuban doctors that were there, fearful that U.S. aid wouldn't then come in.
Right, but now, right away after this latest disaster, Cuba sent 800 doctors right away, and you've seen that changing a bit, especially in Africa with the Ebola outbreak, because the Cuban doctors took the forefront of everything, and people had to admit that they were there.
Now, what about refugees and deportations? Explain the latest situation with Haitian refugees in this country being deported back to Haiti. Wasn't it just recently announced last month that the Department of Homeland Security announcing it would fully resume deportation of undocumented Haitian immigrants?
Right, that was September 22nd that they announced that the new policy for Haitian refugees. Any Haitians that reach the borders of the U.S. without permission to enter will be automatically detained until they are deported. Now, this was in reaction to a surge of refugees that have been coming up, Haitian refugees coming from Brazil. These are Haitians that moved to Brazil that were welcomed there after the earthquake because they needed the labor force when they were preparing for the World Cup and later the Olympics. Now that Brazil is experiencing this economic crisis, the Haitians are being pushed out, and they're heading north to try to come to the U.S. borders. They've been entering through Mexico. They crossed like 10 countries to get there. A big part of it is by foot. Many people die on the way. And then they've been mostly entering through the Tijuana-San Diego border. We've been receiving refugees coming up to New York from this group since late May. There are about 4,000 to 5,000 refugees that came in at that border. Now, because of so many folks coming in, there are more on the way. There's at least 1,500 waiting outside of the border of San Diego. Then the Obama administration announced that they were going to stop taking them in and detaining them and deporting them.
I wanted to ask about aid going to Haiti. The Red Cross, notorious there. A lot of criticism, suggestions that it, quote, lost $500 million there. ProPublica in 2015 wrote how the Red Cross raised $500 million for Haiti and built 6 homes. Even as the group has publicly celebrated its work, insider accounts detail a string of failures. The New York Times, the report is here. The details are ugly. It says the Red Cross claims it gave homes to over 130,000 Haitians, but it actually built only 6.
Well, this is not the first time that we've seen the Red Cross do this. They do this all over. They raise money on disasters and don't use most of it for the disasters. This is probably the worst situation because they made so much money from the Haiti earthquake in 2010. And again, we see they were the first ones collecting money, and they're all over. The mass media is recommending people to give to the Red Cross for aid in Haiti right now. So it's sickening that they get away with doing this. They're basically getting away with murder because they're making money on the backs of these disaster victims.
So how can you assure that money actually gets to Haitians?
I think it's important to support Haitians that are helping Haitians, especially on the ground in Haiti. There are many. We've always, I know, at Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees, we've been going down for disasters since 2004, and the first thing we do is identify people in the affected areas and work directly with them. There are a lot of serious, great people that are on the ground in Haiti that are very organized, especially in these remote villages where government does not reach. And I work with refugees, and a lot of them are persecuted because of their organizing work that they do. And I hear the stories. As recent as last week, I had refugees that are applying for asylum that have come in and simply for trying to improve their area. So there are people, we just ask that people work with Haitians that are supporting Haitians.
In the wake of the hurricane, has the Department of Homeland Security said we'll stop deporting Haitian refugees?
They haven't, and that's one of the things we're asking for. First, I want to say that when the Department of Homeland Security, just before the hurricane, announced that they are going to be detaining and deporting, the reason they gave was that Haiti is in a better place than it was from the earthquake, that it's starting to recover. Meanwhile, the State Department is warning Americans not to travel to Haiti because it's dangerous. So that's a direct contrast right there. So no, they have not stopped the deportations. They're detaining people. Haiti, prior to that, Haiti was only accepting 50 deportees, only had the capacity to accept 50 deportees per month. Meanwhile, 50 people per day are coming in just in the Tijuana, San Diego border. So that means people are already being moved to other detentions throughout the country, and they're just going to be sitting there waiting to be deported.
After the earthquake, and still many people live in makeshift tents because of the earthquake from 2010, but being there in Port-au-Prince and seeing ceremonies with President Bill Clinton, who said there are 2 critical issues in his life at that time. One was the marriage of his daughter, the imminent marriage of Chelsea, and the other is the reconstruction of Haiti. He was a major force in Haiti. What happened?
So first of all, we have to go back when we look at Bill Clinton and his relationship in Haiti when he was president. One of the worst things that he's done that's still hurting Haiti now, especially in the wake of these disasters that keep happening to Haiti, is this policy where he took the excess rice from Arkansas, where he's from, and dumped it in Haiti and used our tax dollars to subsidize it. up until this past recent year, there's legislation that keeps getting knocked off to reverse this policy, although he apologized for it.
Let's go to that apology. Yeah. Yes, in 2010, former President Clinton publicly apologized for forcing Haiti to drop tariffs on imported subsidized U.S. rice during his time in office. The policy wiped out Haitian rice farming, seriously damaging Haiti's ability to be self-sufficient. This is the president apologizing at a hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. At the time, he was the UN Special Envoy to Haiti.
Since 1981, the United States has followed a policy until the last year or so we started rethinking it, that we rich countries that produce a lot of food should sell it to poor countries and relieve them of the burden of producing their own food. So thank goodness they can leap directly into the industrial era. It has not worked. It's maybe been good for some of my farmers in Arkansas, but it has not worked. It was a mistake. It was a mistake that I was a party to. I am not pointing the finger at anybody. I did that. I have to live every day with the consequences of the lost capacity to produce a rice crop in Haiti to feed those people because of what I did. Nobody else.
That's President Clinton.
This practice is still in effect, and Haiti is always getting rice dumped on them. Rice is a staple. There's no reason why Haiti should be importing rice because that's something that's always the rice grown in Haiti is much healthier. Ever since this rice has been coming in, there have been diabetes epidemics. People didn't used to have that much diabetes. This is the worst thing that could have happened to Haiti.
But right now, in the aftermath of the hurricane, with Haitian officials warning there could be a famine, what are the most critical actions that you feel need to be taken?
I think it has to be supporting the farmers that are in these hardest hit areas. You know, by bringing rice and other things that could have been grown in Haiti, that's not helping at all. I think we need to support the farmers to start to recrop, you know, going forward and for the long term of Haiti. We need to start growing our rice in Haiti again, supporting the farmers in the Latibonite region of Haiti, where rice has always been grown in Haiti and supplied for the entire country.
And for the families of loved ones who have died, for the cholera epidemic, what is most critical right now that you're hearing from family and friends there?
I just think support. I mean, most families are supported by their families over here. And the fact that these refugees are being returned, these are refugees that want to work to support their families. If they're going to keep them in detention, they're not able to work. Prior to this announcement, September 22nd, they were letting them in. 4,000 to 5,000 people came in. They simply stopped it because they thought it would look bad for Hillary Clinton with the election coming on, with having all these refugees come in. There are thousands more on the way. Let these people work and let them support their families.
Ninaj Raoul, I want to thank you for being with us, Executive Director of Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees on the board of IFCO. That's Pastors for Peace. This is Democracy Now! When we come back, what's happening in Yemen today? Stay with us.
Mix up a whole heap of pedo, not be straightened out. Christy away from home. I and I longing to go home. Within a red, green, and gold robe. Come on, 12 tribe of Israel. Come on, 12 tribe of Israel.
Christopher Columbus by Burning Spear here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Documents obtained by Reuters show the U.S. government's concerned it could be implicated in potential war crimes in Yemen because of its support for a Saudi-led coalition air campaign. The Obama administration's continued to authorize weapons sales to Saudi Arabia despite warnings last year from government lawyers that it might be considered a co-belligerent under international law. This comes as a Saudi airstrike on a funeral home in the capital, Sana'a, on Saturday, killed at least 140 mourners and wounded more than 500 others. Survivors spoke of back-to-back bombings during a funeral service for the father of an official with the rebel Houthi government, which controls Sana'a.
This is a heinous crime one can barely imagine. No one ever thought they would strike a mourning hall. Can anyone imagine hitting people mourning to death? The battle is taking place on the borders and several other places, yet they bomb a hall. And now they deny it was their missiles. We are all here. Our homes are nearby. We heard the missiles and the planes. There were 2 planes and 4 airstrikes, not just 2.
Thousands of Yemenis gathered at the United Nations building in Sana'a on Sunday, calling for an international investigation into the assault. The attack was carried out with warplanes and munitions sold to the Saudi-led coalition by the United States. The U.S. Air Force continues to provide mid-air refueling to Saudi warplanes. Meanwhile, the U.S. military has said one of its missile destroyers was targeted Sunday in a failed missile attack from Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen. Saudi Arabia and the United States accuse Iran of supplying weapons to the Houthis. According to the UN, more than 4,000 civilians have been killed and over 7,000 injured since the Saudi-led coalition bombing began last year. Airstrikes have reportedly caused about 60% of the deaths. The latest attack came as the UN warned the civil war is leading to famine in Yemen, where some 1.5 million children are currently malnourished and 28 million people are short of food. To talk more about the situation, we're joined by Sarah Lee Whitson. She is Executive Director of Human Rights Watch's Middle East and North Africa Division. She's made numerous trips to Yemen, including a visit this year to examine the impact of the Saudi-led coalition airstrikes. This latest attack on a funeral, can you explain what you understand happened, Sarah Lee?
Well, what we know so far is that the funeral was actually publicly announced on Friday, so that it's clear that the coalition knew that there was a funeral planned at this site, which is used for weddings, funerals, parties, and so forth. And we know that it has been regularly used for such public civilian gatherings, over the past year. There were 2 strikes that we know of on the funeral, during the funeral. One followed by a second strike, which actually ended up injuring some first responders. So again, we saw a repeat strike, clearly indicating this was not an accident. Initially, the Saudis denied the airstrike, but they've since, according to the BBC, acknowledged that this was a Saudi coalition airstrike on this funeral hall. What we do know as well is that there were at least a dozen senior Houthi and GPC officials, including military officials from the Houthi armed group, who were killed in the strike. But we also know that there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of civilians there, including children who we know were among the dead.
You are calling this a war crime?
We are saying it is a likely war crime, the extent to which it was foreseeable and knowable that this would result in a mass killing of civilians.
You talked to eyewitnesses to the attack.
We have talked to 8 eyewitnesses, and we're continuing to talk to more people who are documenting who was at the funeral, what happened, how the attacks took place, what the results were of the first responders who were hit in the second strike.
Reuters has obtained these official documents showing government officials are concerned U.S. could be implicated in potential war crimes in Yemen because of its support for the Saudi-led airstrikes.
They have a good reason to fear because they are implicated in the unlawful strikes that are being carried out by the Saudi coalition. And that's not just because the U.S. is the primary arms seller to Saudi Arabia and the Saudi coalition member states, but also because it's actively participating in the conflict by providing targeting assistance to the Saudis and critical refueling support for Saudi planes, without which it's very clear these strikes could not be taking place.
I wanted to see if we can reach Nasser Arabi, the Yemeni journalist based in Sana'a, founder and president of the media service company Yemen Now. Nasser, are you with us?
Yes, yes.
Can you tell us, speaking to us from the capital, can you talk about what you understand happened, who you've spoken to, and what evidence is there of the U.S. support for the Saudi attack?
Well, no single Yemeni doubt that Saudi Arabia was not the one who did this crime at all, because it is not the first, it is not the last. Saudi Arabia have been committing war crimes since March 26, 2015. So without doubt, it's Saudi Arabia. But let me tell you what is also the thing. The big criminal is Obama himself. This is how Yemenis see to the situation, because every Yemeni believe that Saudi Arabia would not have done that at all, would not have done a war in Yemen without the approval of Obama. And it is very clear to everyone. Obama wanted to appease the Saudis after the Iranian nuclear deal, but unfortunately he appeased them by the Yemeni blood, and this is a big problem to the Americans. Obama is destroying the values and the principle of America now. Obama is leading the world to the law of jungles. Obama, unfortunately, is killing Yemen now, killing Yemen. No killer except Obama in the eyes of Yemenis now, because everybody knows Saudi Arabia and what it would do if there is no the approval of Obama.
Nasser, you tweeted this morning, Obama has been killing Yemen humans with Saudi hands for about 20 months now. Also from The Intercept, they write, multiple bomb fragments at the scene appear to confirm the use of American-produced Mk-82 guided bombs. One fragment, posted in a picture on the Facebook page of a prominent Yemeni lawyer, says, for use on Mk-82 Fin guided bomb. Nasser Arabi.
Yes, yes. Well, let me tell you something very important. You know, the problem why, or the reason why we say Obama is killing Yemen humans, is simply because Obama or United States, the administration of United States is cooperating, and this is announced. This is known to everyone. But it is not only a matter of cooperating with the refuel or with the intelligence or with the logistic things. No, but it is a will. It is Obama will to support the Saudi Wahhabi regime, which means to us, as Obama now is supporting the Qaeda ISIS, because Obama is saying he is supporting the internationally recognized government, the exiled government based in Riyadh now. Obama should know, and I think he knows, that three members at least of this government are designated by Obama, by Treasury Department, as global terrorists. I can give you the names now. Three at least of this government in Riyadh are Qaeda ISIS leaders. They are leading the operatives here in Yemen, using the American weapons, using the Saudi money. This is what Obama is doing in Yemen. Obama is leading the Americans to the law of Jungles and the world to the law of Jungles. He is crazy now.
In June, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon removed the U.S.-backed Saudi-led coalition from a blacklist of forces responsible for killing children. Ban later acknowledged he was coerced into doing so after the kingdom threatened to cut off funding to the UN.
The report describes horrors no child should have to face. At the same time, I also had to consider the very real prospect that millions of other children would suffer grievously if, as was suggested to me, countries would defund many UN programs. Children already at risk in Palestine, South Sudan, Syria, Yemen, and so many other places would fall further into despair. It is unacceptable for member states to exert undue pressure.
That's UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Sarah Lee Whitson.
The fallout to U.S. and UN credibility from this support for Saudi Arabia and its disastrous war in Yemen has been quite severe. Not only is the U.S. implicated in the crimes that are being carried out by the Saudi coalition in Yemen, not only has the UN's credibility been tarnished by basically accepting a bribe to take Saudi Arabia off of this list of shame of worst attackers on children, but now we have the U.S. government standing behind a government, a Saudi coalition, that is carrying out the exact same kind of strikes in Yemen, an attack on a funeral, that extremist groups in Iraq, ISIS, has been carrying out in Baghdad for over a year, and again making it very hard for people to tell the difference about who the extremists really are. Finally, the recent vote at the UN Security Council about a resolution on Aleppo was significantly stymied because the U.S. just could not maintain condemning an attack by Russians and Syrian government forces on civilians while it's supporting, aiding and abetting very similar attacks that its partner, its #1 arms client, is carrying out in Yemen.
I wanted to turn to Senator Chris Murphy, who's spoken out against the U.S. support for the Saudi-led bombing campaign in August. He was on CNN.
There's an American imprint on every civilian life lost in Yemen. Why? Well, it's because though the Saudis are actually dropping the bombs from their planes, they couldn't do it without the United States. It's our munitions sold to the Saudis. It's our planes that are refueling the Saudi jets. And it's our intelligence that are helping the Saudis provide their targeting. We have made a decision to go to war in Yemen against a Houthi rebel army that poses no existential threat to the United States. It's really wild to me that we're not talking more about this in the United States. The United States Congress has not debated a war authorization giving the president the power to conduct this operation in Yemen.
Connecticut Senator Murphy went on to say that Congress can put an end to arms sales in Saudi Arabia, again speaking on CNN.
Congress may have a chance to weigh in September because the Saudis need more bombs, and so they need the Congress to reauthorize a new sale of weapons so Congress can step in and say enough is enough.
And Senator Murphy said that the perception in Yemen is that the United States is responsible for the war, not Saudi Arabia.
If you talk to Yemenis, they will tell you that inside Yemen, this is not perceived to be a Saudi bombing campaign. This is perceived to be a U.S. bombing campaign. What's happening is that we are helping to radicalize the Yemeni population against the United States.
Which is exactly what Nasser Arabi, our guest, just said from Sana'a. So he was talking about cutting off the weapons supply back in September. It's now October, Sarah Lee Whitson.
And there was a remarkable vote in the Senate, which was defeated, to suspend arms sales to Saudi Arabia. But there were more votes in support for it than ever could have been imagined. So clearly there is a shift and a reconsideration. And, of course, most importantly, on Saturday, the State Department announced that it was going to review what it called its drastically reduced support for Saudi Arabia in the war in Yemen. So clearly the administration is feeling the heat. We need an international investigation, a true impartial investigation administration to understand what is happening with these airstrikes and to hold those responsible to account. And I think the U.S. Congress has a major role to play, not only in suspending arms sales to Saudi Arabia, but in forcing this administration to tell us exactly what sort of assistance it has been providing and what its involvement has been in every single one of the unlawful strikes that we've documented. There are answers that the U.S. government, that the National Security Council, the State Department owes the American people as to what exactly it's doing in terms of its support for this war in Yemen. And it's only given very vague and cryptic answers.
Why is President Obama doing this?
Well, as your guest said, and as the administration has itself repeatedly conceded, this war in Yemen is the price of the Iran deal. The Yemeni people are paying the bill for Saudi being very upset about the Iran deal. And I think the administration calculated that this would be a very short war, that the Houthis would be quickly dislodged, and they could befriend and win over the Saudis. What they didn't count on, and what we've seen time and again in the region, is that the war unfolds into a massive disaster, and the U.S. in way over its head.
Nasser Arabi, we have 30 seconds. Your final message to the American people from Sana'a, from Yemen.
The final message is that we want to salute the American heroes despite all the war crimes of Obama, because there are a lot of people who, the Americans, all the Americans, we respect them. We know that they are with us. Human Rights Watch and the senators like Chris Marcy and Rand Paul and a lot of senators, they are heroes. We respect them. We salute them. We know they are going to rescue the values and the principles of America against Obama. Obama is misled. Obama is bylined by Saudi dirty money. Saudi dirty money is destroying the principles of America and values of America. They should stop Obama and every official who does not know what's happening in Yemen now.
Let me just ask Sarah Lee Whitson very quickly. Last month, the U.S. Senate approved the $1 billion arms deal to Saudi Arabia. Is there any chance this might be revoked if there are concerns that the U.S. itself is involved with war crimes?
Absolutely. Even if the deal itself is not revoked, delivery can be suspended, delivery can be delayed, and we've already seen the U.S. government, for example, suspend the transfer of various weapons during the courses of various wars. So they can absolutely suspend this. And I think the U.S. government knows that really the time is up for this war and its support.
Well, so let's see some of the moderators of the debates ask the presidential candidates these questions. Sarah Lee Whitson, thanks so much for being with us from Human Rights Watch. And Nasser Arabi, thank you for joining us from Sana'a, Yemeni journalist based in Sana'a, founder and president of the media service company Yemen Now. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a minute.
Back into my pen's failed attempts at trying to put back the splintered pieces of our hearts, our hearts, our hearts staring at a blank page, wishing we could begin again.
Thousands of warriors will come rushing in. Our ancestors wage war with the government in the spirit of Spotted Tail and John Trudell. This is spiritual awakening. They feed us lies, but we won't take it in. Let us ride on the lands where our ancestors died, breathing life into our cultures they said were petrified. They tell a history that our peoples don't recognize. The U.S. government should be charged with genocide, spitting rap in the time of blood quantum is suicide. We survived, staying strong. All those times we should have died. I confess, I'm depressed. Sometimes I can't take the stress. Living is a test, distressed up in the Wild West. My fam suffers, the land suffers. I hate the silence. I hate statistics. I hate the prisons. I hate the violence. I hate these politicians.
Frank Juan here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's campaign is facing increasing turmoil as House Speaker Paul Ryan told fellow Republican lawmakers Monday he'll no longer campaign for Trump following the release of this 2005 videotape showing Trump boasting about sexually assaulting women.
I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
The video was recorded by NBC's Access Hollywood in 2005 and released Friday by The Washington Post. The announcement by House Speaker Ryan comes as a growing number of Republican officials have called on Trump to step down as their party's nominee following Friday's release of the video. 15 Republican senators, including former Republican presidential nominee John McCain, are now openly opposing Trump's candidacy. Scores more Congress members are. For more on the fallout from these revelations, we're joined by Jody Jacobson, president and editor-in-chief of Rewire. Her latest article is headlined, "All the President's Misogynists, Why It Took So Long to Derail the Trump Train." Welcome to Democracy Now!, Jody. Why don't you respond to this increasing number of Republicans who are pulling their support from Trump, not to be confused with House Speaker Ryan, who did not unendorse Trump, but said he won't campaign for him?
Well, I think it's a few things. You know, one, this came on the heels of a really bad first debate performance by Trump. And secondly, he transgressed a line by making it clear that he felt impunity at sexually assaulting white women, and particularly white married women. Because if you look at the whole spectrum of Trump's comments throughout the entire campaign, he has been assaulting verbally immigrants, refugees, women generally. And no one thought at the time, gee, what about, you know, the daughters, wives, and sisters of Mexican immigrants who might be feeling ashamed for being called, having their, you know, parents called rapists or criminals or what have you. So now we're hearing a lot from the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans about how hurtful this was to them because they can't imagine their wives, daughters, and mothers being subject to this kind of thing. I think it's a little bit too little, too late, but it's not surprising to me that suddenly they would take this turn of events and start to abandon ship.
The highest-ranking Republican woman in Congress condemned Trump's comments. This is Washington State Congressmember Kathy McMorris Rogers, who said, quote, "It is never appropriate to condone unwanted sexual advances or violence against women. Mr. Trump must realize that it has no place in public or private conversations." She framed it as sexual violence, Jody.
Well, it is sexual violence and assault. You have a lot of, you know, GOP representatives now, both senators and congressmen, trying to deflect from whether or not grabbing women against their will is assault. There have been several who have sort of, you know, waffled on whether they would call it assault. I don't know if it is. Suddenly, I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell. You know, it's whenever it's convenient for the GOP to deflect or deny something, they suddenly become unexpert at those things and they can't articulate anything. So, you also have as early as just as late as Thursday, Donald Trump once again saying that the Central Park five young men who were sentenced up to 13 years and served that time in prison for what's known as the Central Park jogger case, a jogger who was raped and left almost for dead in Central Park. These men who served all this time in prison, who Donald Trump took out full-page ads in the New York Times and other publications to have them executed, were then exonerated. The person who did the crime admitted it, who had nothing to do with them. And the city of New York settled for $41 million with these five young men who lost so many years in prison. Yet just last Thursday, he continued to say they were guilty. Jody. Well, exactly. You know, Donald Trump is clearly interested in making everyone else a predator but himself. But he's clearly a predator. And he's also incredibly grotesque in his historical references to his daughter's body, to, you know, putting his daughter's body out for view, commenting on his daughter's body. This one tape is really just a slice of what's out there that we already know. And it's clear from what I've heard from people inside the production companies of his shows that there's lots more tape to be had if one could get their hands on it. And I know people are looking into that now. So, you know, I think this is a man who has acted with impunity for a very long time, who's not been held to account. He wasn't held to account by the press earlier, and now he's grown into this full-fledged monster. And the GOP created that monster by allowing this kind of rhetoric and this kind of assault on values and on rights, basic human values and basic human rights, to go on throughout the campaign.
We have to leave it there. Jody Jacobson, we have to leave it there. We will link to your piece at Rewire. This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.